join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. So our very first item tonight is a public hearing on the sale of map 234, lot 1.4, pursuant to RSA 4114A, to TurboCam and its affiliates. This is a portion of the meeting where should you have public comment, we will engage that for up to 15 minutes, 3 minutes per person. Would anyone like to discuss that portion of our meeting tonight in public hearing for the sale of that property to TurboCam? Okay, seeing as there is no public comment, I will close that portion of the public hearing. Is that our third on this particular? Second. This is our second public hearing on the sale of map 234, lot 1.4, pursuant to the RSA to TurboCam and its affiliates. And I will invite to speak our State Senator David Waters, and I will apologize immediately, but if we could keep it to maybe 10 minutes or less, that would be wonderful. And thank you. I think I saw you at the State House the other day and didn't get a chance to say hello while I was up there.
Yeah, just send the hook, you know?
Yes.
Let me pass around a couple of handouts, and I have some more copies up here if people would like them, and it's nice to see everybody. It's nice to be out of Concord.
Yes.
You know, I think we've had a really terrific session up there, and I wanted now the dust is kind of settling. We have our last votes on Thursday on the budget and bills from Committee of the Compromise, so we kind of have a good sense of the big picture of where things are going to be. It's been an interesting year because I was in the majority party this time. It meant I became chair of the Transportation Committee, and so oversaw all the transportation legislation, and I also was chair of the Capital Budget Committee, which developed a $125 million capital budget for state building programs and upgrades and other capital kinds of projects. And I was also on energy and natural resources, so my interests in wildlife and in natural resources and climate change and energy issues, renewable energy and so on, could also work on that as well. Of course, in the first year of the session, the big question is the budget. And we worked very hard with the House and Senate and have passed a budget, which we'll take final votes on Thursday and send it on to the governor. And so I gave you a handout here, which is kind of an update on things. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You know, it's about 1,000 pages, as budgets tend to be, but there's a lot of good policy here. And I did want to focus on some of the things that are going to affect Barrington very dramatically. I heard so much during the campaign about property taxpayer relief that we were really overburdening our property tax payers, and in particular all the downshifting. It started 10 years ago, whether it was the pensions or the education or stopping revenue sharing. I mean, all these things have been just hammering the communities. So you know, people really heard that around the state. So we have a substantial increase for education funding. It's $138 million will be coming to the schools, and it's kind of apportioned with an eye to the taxable property per pupil, and also the percentage of students that are on free and reduced meals. And in that formula, Barrington does pretty well. It means that Barrington will see $1,056,000 in additional revenue over the 2 years for the schools. This is the Senate also included there. It's not in the listing I gave you, but we are fully funding kindergartners, so they're a full student. I've worked on this one for 4 years, and we finally got it done. And then also not listed here is that we are fully funding special education. So the state's obligation for special ed, forget about the feds, but the state's obligation, $8.6 million, and I know that just a few students in special education can have a large impact on the local taxpayers, so that was a good thing to do as well. The Senate really cared about revenue sharing. We had a bargain with the states for decades that we'll collect revenues and meals and rooms taxes and other things, and then a portion of that comes back to you. And that stopped in the 2011 budget, and it's still in statute. We're supposed to do it, but we haven't done it. And if we'd been doing that over the last few years, it would have meant something like $250 million more to black municipalities. So I see this as a kind of a down payment to get that going again. This $40 million are coming. Again, this is done a portion to the demographics of the community, and again, Barrington does pretty well on this. It's $185,000 coming to Barrington, and you can spend it however you want. Put that into anything you want. $185,000 will be coming this way. We also really tried to finally fund fully everything we need to do for the opioid and mental health issues. We're fully funding the mental health 10-year plan, and I'll get into some of those details in a moment. But also we're securing substance use disorder treatment through Medicaid expansion. About 6,000 people, or of the 50,000 have been added because of Medicaid expansion program. About 6,000 are getting their frontline treatment for substance use disorder is through that program. In terms of mental health, which is so often so integrated with substance use disorders, we're doing a number of things. For years, as I'm sure you know, we've been warehousing people in the emergency rooms. On a given day, maybe 40, 35, 40, 50 adults, maybe 8, 10, 20 children. They come in mental health crisis, maybe suicidal or danger to other people, and they might sit in the emergency room getting no treatment for weeks, because we don't have enough mental health beds at the state facility. So what we have done is we're moving the children out of the state hospital, and since there's just one per room, we're going to put them down in a better facility down in Nashua, and then we can get 2 per room for the adults, and that will provide 50 to 60 beds that are going to be needed to finally take care of this problem. We're also, some of you may know that people who are adjudicated mentally ill and endanger themselves or others, they've been sent up to the state prison, and they're put in a secure psychiatric unit with prisoners. So essentially we're criminalizing being mentally ill. So we're going to build a secure psychiatric unit. 25 beds is what we think we need, and that'll be at the state hospital grounds. Of course, the best way to stop having to put somebody in those facilities is prevention. So we have fully funded mobile mental health crisis units for children around the state. And what it'll mean is, let's say the police are called to a home, a child in crisis. Well, rather than putting the child in the squad car and taking the emergency room, they get warehoused and then sent off to the state hospital. Now, the crisis unit will show up. Maybe it's a medication issue. Maybe it's having healthcare professionals there to work with the child. Maybe there's a way to divert the child into treatment rather than going in that direction. So I think that will be really just huge help on that as well. A big problem in mental health and all kinds of healthcare has been provider rates. We haven't given a raise for over a decade. These are the people working in nursing homes, assistants for providing assistance to people, staff for all kinds of mental and medical health. We're only paying 40 cents on the dollar to Medicaid, for Medicare providers, so they can't afford to take patients anymore. So we're putting $90 million in to give those folks a raise. And rather than leaving state, going to work somewhere else so they can make more money, they can stay here, and it'll be a great, and practices can start accepting Medicare patients again, and nursing homes will be able to keep their staff as well. So it's a good thing. We are in the law enforcement area, the Division of Children, Youth, and Families. You've probably read over the last couple of years the crisis there, and really a scandal. No way to put it in. It's on us in the legislature and in the government that we let this happen. 3 or 4 children died in state custody. They were abused. They were killed in state custody by abuse because we didn't have enough caseworkers. So we are fully funding the staffing levels for the Division of Children, Youth, and Family, and take care of that. We're also continuing the Granite Hammer program, putting more money into law enforcement so we can go after the large drug dealers down in Lawrence, working with the federal and the Massachusetts police to do that. And also, we're starting to see a labor shortage crisis for our first responders. So this will help provide some more funding for police and fire. Trying to do a lot for small business and large business too. I think the education things are things that, that's a good, the employers are screaming out for workers. Well, let's improve the education system. We're giving more support to the university system, the community college system, but we're also really ramping up some job training programs, workforce training programs in the fields, like healthcare, like tech, like the trades where the greatest needs are. Related to this, you may recall I've been working with Career and Technical Education since I've been elected, and we are fully funding the Career and Technical Education tuition and transportation for the first time. That will help the sending communities like Barrington, give you more money so you can send more students who want to take Career and Technical Education to the centers that you send them to. And I also got a tax credit plan passed that will give a tax credit to businesses that not only give equipment to the Career and Technical Ed centers, so you can train the equipment you might use at that employer, but also will provide funding for internships and then cost of apprenticeships and the cost of employee time to a business if they're teaching the CTE or if they're supervising students from the CTE. And then we have a really substantial tax reforms for businesses. The kind of trade-off in funding this budget is that we are freezing the next decrease in the business profits tax and the business enterprise tax. And over this, the governor may veto the budget. We will see. I think it was a good thing we did the first reduction. It got us down to be competitive and actually lower than the other New England states on our business profits tax and business enterprise tax. There was a second cut that was scheduled to take place. We're going to freeze that, and that gives us the funding plus better revenue picture as well to fund all these things here. To make up for businesses not getting that additional tax increase, which actually is going to go to a very tax decrease, going to a very few businesses, mostly out of state, large corporations. We have tax reform that brings us to conformity with federal tax standards on businesses, and also takes care of single source issues. That if a company in New Hampshire is bringing something in that's manufactured out of the state, then they end up having to pay taxes on it. Whereas what we're doing now is saying, no, the out-of-state business entity that's doing business in the state will pay taxes, and that means we're going to reduce substantially the taxes that in-state businesses are going to pay. Over time, this is something the businesses have wanted for a long time and will, I think, more than offset what we're going to see there. And then finally, on the budget list, we are putting substantial funding into affordable housing, workforce housing, and dealing with homelessness. So that's another really important priority. I'll just turn for a moment to the bills that I have sponsored, and I don't think I'll go through all of these. You can look at them. Some of them have passed, and I hope the governor will sign them. 2 or 3 will end up in the budget. They've been incorporated in the budget. One raises the smoking age to 21. We're dealing with a vaping crisis in our schools, and this will take care of, in a substantial way, I hope keep those tobacco products and vaping devices out of the hands of our middle schoolers. It also, there's a program that I realized I've worked with the disability community for quite some time, and retirement age, 65 used to be, and so when you hit 65, if you were someone who was disabled, you would have to quit work because you could no longer get Medicaid services to support you with your aids, the help that you need in your household and in getting to work. You'd have to quit, you'd lose that. And of course the federal retirement age is going up to 67, right? So we're saying, oh, well, you're 65, you got to start working. So this bill, which was incorporated in the budget, says you, in New Hampshire, if you're a disabled adult, you can work as long as you want, and you will get your Medicaid services. People have dignity, they want to work, they should be able to work. So that one's in there. Also in the budget is a real-time threat system. I had a bill in that we don't have a statewide real-time threat alert system that if there is an active shooter or other threat within the school, instantly connects the school, its personnel, to first responders, gives them real-time information about where the crisis is, who's involved, where students are in lockdown, gives them a building plan so they instantly can know when they set up their command post where to go, what doors are accessible, what are locked, what are locked, what's secure in the building or not, and it instantly interconnects all systems in one communication platform so that we can address these threats. So that's also in the budget. Just to conclude, you'll see I have a number of bills on energy, on energy efficiency, energy storage, moving towards zero-emission vehicles, electric vehicle infrastructure, autonomous vehicles, and then a number of other bills on wildlife corridors, and adjusting to climate change, sea level rise, extreme precipitation, flooding, a whole raft of enabling provisions that will let municipalities have bonding authority. You can do joint bonding with other communities. You can do joint bonding programs with the regional planning commissions to do what a community needs to do to prepare for the kind of changes that are coming from extreme precipitation, flooding, not so much here, but sea level rise in other communities along the coast. So I hope that's close to 10 minutes.
It was fun.
It was like, did I do good?
Yeah.
I'd be glad to answer any questions if you do have some. So.
No, thank you for the synopsis. That was helpful. Anyone else?
I'd just like to say thank you for the billing passed last year that increased the monies, taxation for the 100% disabled veterans, raising it from 2 to 4. I think that was an outstanding thing. It's going to help quite a few people.
Well, thank you. And, you know, we have, we're studying a bill that I co-sponsored to provide more funding help for purchase of homes by veterans, too. So I think that, you know, we never take an eye off the needs of the veterans at the State House. That's one of the strongest bipartisan things. And whatever we can do, we're going to try to do.
Hopefully some of these shelter programs will also assist that way, too. I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. And everybody has my phone number, so anything comes up, please give me a call.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And next on the list is a recognition of retirement, which Tracy will talk about.
So, just for our public that's watching tonight, this is Suzanne McNeil's final meeting, heading up the support of this select board. And Suzanne has completed 39 years now with the town of Barrington. She's entered her 40th year in this month of June. She has been extremely supportive of various leaders throughout her tenure. Her communication skills have certainly helped mitigate many different personalities that have sat on the select board over the years. I think I did an estimation that was about 50 different people that you helped support in your role over time, so thank you for that. We, as the current select board, think we can speak on behalf of all those prior select board members and tell you that we're grateful for your commitment to this town, to its volunteer elected officials, and that we commend you for the work that you've done, Suzanne. As you begin this portion of your life, we've decided that we as a board would purchase a gift of time for you. So our leader, Mr. Knapp, has a gift of time for you because I think it speaks to what we wish for you, which is health and happiness as you begin this portion of your life where there's increased time with family and friends. Okay? So thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're on the spot.
So review of minutes for June 10th. I didn't have any
I
corrections.
had no corrections.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Yeah.
There are.
Bailey, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Nap aye?
Who seconded that?
I did.
We'll make note that that was your last batch.
Yeah. And then under old business, the Forestry Service Award.
So as the board is aware, the Town Lands Committee has been working on this project for a number of weeks. The board authorized the advertisement of the RFP for the Forestry Services project. The Town Lands Committee interviewed the top 4 candidates for this bid and prepared, and you'll see in a copy of your materials, the spreadsheet where they systematically ranked how the interview process went. They used that process to recommend that the select board award this bid to Forest Land Improvement, Timothy Nolan, for services in the town of Barrington. So as you're aware, through the process, this is step 1. The Town Lands Committee thought it was valuable to identify this organization, award the bid, and then move forward with them to develop the forest management plans and implement those forest management plans. So after this bid is awarded, the Lands Committee will work with the organization and bring back future proposals to fund those forest management plans and implement them. So this award doesn't have any dollar value with it right now, but the plan is to work with this selected organization, again selected based off their knowledge and experience and not the dollar value that they've offered to the town. So the recommendation from the Land Committee is Forest Land Improvement, Timothy Nolan, for consideration of the board.
Dan? I'll make a motion.
I'd second the motion.
Nat, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Bailey, aye.
There, aye. All right. I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit because I missed our public comment right there. So public comment for anyone who would like to say anything. Just a reminder that it is limited to 15 minutes in total and 3 minutes per person. Going once, twice. All right. 2020 paving projects.
So the materials that you have in front of you, as discussed at the prior meeting, so the first 2 pages is a list of proposed road projects for next year, including the information as available when the road was last improved for your consideration. Additionally, the 2 recent memos the recent memo from Du Bois and King regarding the work proposed on Beauty Hill Road and on Pond Hill Road. And so what we're looking for from the board tonight is a discussion and a preliminary decision to move forward on these road projects for next year. As the budget process continues, we'll be back in front of you to discuss the specifics of how these paving projects for next year would be funded, and as previous years, this would be subject to change. But what we'd like to do is we'd like to get working on the projects necessary this year, the drainage improvements, the culverts, in order to better position the town next year for pursuing these paving projects. And I know the interim road agent is here also. If you have questions for him, he's familiar with the list and what went into preparing it. Dan?
I think I don't mind putting a vote on, keep the trenching going, but no commitment on projects. There's a little too much money involved here. But I'd like to see the trenching be continued for anticipation.
Get them done, get them ready.
Right, but a lot of projects here, too much dollar amount. We need more time.
Well, I know a few of them are going to be fairly large projects and fairly expensive projects by themselves.
Right.
Yep. Okay. George?
Well, I have different insights on this. I think it's time for us to, so to speak, bite the bullet and turn around and put these projects forward, look at them for discussion, and get items moving on it. Our time of delaying more and more projects is pretty soon going to catch up in the next 5 years. And we're going to say, well, we should have, we could have, but we didn't. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
My thoughts in hearing Senator Waters as well is that potentially we may have the opportunity, should the budget pass, where more funds are coming to the town. And I think we have found, even with this Walk Hill project, that when we put things off and we do not invest in the proper way in our roadways, they ultimately end up costing us more money in the long run. So I'm very in support of what's recommended for the road.
I think it's definitely worth looking at what's being proposed and then figuring out, I think there's some stuff we'll be able to move on this year, but there are other things that we're not going to be able to do within reason. And setting an objective plan to that. Taking what may be the worst of the worst right now, maybe even just the worst, and then addressing that and then getting it's okay but not perfect.
Okay.
That's my thoughts.
So do we want to set aside time at the next meeting to discuss this?
I think it's going to be up to the road agent to propose the project.
So a few things, if I may. So number one, I'll remind the board that the intent here is to focus on, just get the road projects for next year. And I intend, and with the board's support, we'll develop and fund that road study for a longer-term plan moving forward. The second thing, as we move forward with an intent to hire a road agent, DPW director, I think it's important to leave the opportunity for that individual coming in to have a say. And so the decision here wouldn't be set in stone as it would develop through the budget process, but the benefit is to allow the highway department to get working on these projects now, knowing that the board supports moving on these projects. It's very possible that as progress continues, either larger issues are identified or adjustments have to be made based on like I said, through the budget process, maybe more money's available, more can be added. So it would be a preliminary approval with the understanding that it would change throughout the season.
Dan?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with the big items, but a lot of this was already budgeted, the trenching and stuff like that, and then the rental of the excavator. So we can maintain doing that, but we don't really need to make a decision on the big dollar items till we have new staff maybe, or budget time, how we come up with the money. So I'll make a motion to continue trenching on intersection on these roads.
I don't know if we need a motion right now because that's just part of these guys doing their work. If Rick would like to come up and talk about it, I don't think we need a motion for that.
So just to piggyback what Administrator McIver said, what we're really asking you folks to do is to preliminarily approve this road list so that we can line work up and continue to operate. Much like what Peter used to do is he would look at through the budget process once we determined how much money we were going to spend. That is when we really decided how much paving we could do based on what the paving cost would be. So this list, even as you go into the budget process, because we don't know what paving will cost us next year, much like we've done for the last 20 years that Pete's been doing it, Ronnie before him, is that once the amount of money is set aside or determined for paving and he knows what the bid price is for paving, then the road agent would look at how much money there is and how much paving he could do, he or she could do. But what we'd like to do is some of these things, you're 100% correct, we could continue moving along doing the ditching, and we've been doing that. They're over on Young Road right now ditching. Kind of awaiting where to go from here. The Malago Road is probably the biggest project we got to do. And I've indicated that, in my opinion, we kind of hold off, hoping that sooner rather than later you folks make a decision on a new road agent, and that individual would be intimately involved in whatever work's going to get done on that road. But I think Commerce Way, Century Pines, Forest Brook Drive, them roads are all going to be relatively easy to do. We can get working on those. So really that's what we're looking for right now, is ability to do that.
I think the board would probably agree with supporting, starting to look at that, figure out what the right way to proceed is, what we're gonna do there.
So I'd make a motion to take the list and proceed with you evaluating these particular areas unless the board has some other roadway that they need to identify.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Air I.
Bailey, aye.
Patrick,
Hardikoff, aye?
Nap aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll keep the board up to date as progress is made and updates are available.
2019 audit contract.
So at a previous board meeting, the board authorized me to seek a final year with the current financial auditor. We had previously been on a 3-year contract for $12,800. They've offered the 5th year to the town as a 1-year contract for $14,500, seeking the board's consideration for approving.
Does this include auditing the area that caused management of the past?
Yes.
Then that's a 13.3% increase, but actually less than we would expect, so therefore I would make the motion to approve this.
Seconded.
Air I.
Thank you, Tracy. Bailey, aye.
Patrick,
Hardikoff, aye?
Nap aye. All right, under new business, I know Connor had something you wanted to...
With the board's permission, one thing to add, I apologize for neglecting to put it on the agenda. We had scheduled the air handling units for the public safety building, those bids to be due today and opened and decided tonight. There's 3 bids that have yet to be opened. I spoke with the facilities manager, who's familiar with the organization that submitted all 3 bids and is comfortable with any and supports the board with the choosing the low bidder. So with the board's permission, I would hope that those bids would be opened and decided tonight.
I'm fine with that, yeah, as long as everyone else is in agreement.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So, so Suzanne has the bids to bring to the chair. So these, as you'll remember through the budget process last year, the facilities manager asked the board for additional funding in the general government buildings line to fund the replacement of the air handling units at the public safety building. So this work, once awarded, will be accomplished in conjunction with the police department renovation. Consolidating the projects in that way will limit disruption in the facility and also allow the contractors less time in doing the work that they need to do as the ceilings are open and the building is prepared.
All right, first one is from G-Big Heating and Cooling, and it's a total of $58,000.
Even?
Even. The second one is from Siemens Industrial, and let's see here. For a total quoted price of $84,335. And the last one is from M2 Service Group. They, option 1 estimated cost at $81,898. And option 2 with an estimated cost of $87,896.
Could you repeat that again, Mr. Chairman, please?
Yes, option 1 is $81,898. And option 2 is $87,896.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Based on such a large variance, would we be wise to have potentially Paul Saunders and Chief Walker review these 3 and make a recommendation?
That was going to be my suggestion, because I haven't read, we don't have the time to sit
How would
here
the rest of the
through all
board
these.
feel?
No, yeah,
Well, I know that's something, that's no requirements.
Yep.
So next step
So-
on that.
We will punt this to Rick and Paul to make a decision and
Make a
let the board-
recommendation
Make
to
a
the board.
recommendation and let the board know.
If I may ask, if the conclusion of the facilities manager and the fire chief is supporting the low bidder, is the board comfortable awarding the contract to the low bidder?
Absolutely.
So would you make a vote to conditionally approve the low bidder based on the recommendation?
So I'll make a motion to conditionally approve the low bidder upon review and approval and acceptance by the building facilities manager and the fire chief.
I would second that.
Bailey, aye.
That's right.
Hardikoff, aye.
Nap aye.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Sorry, I gotta get back in here. I have a hearing issue. So summer all boards meeting. You wanna?
Yeah, so as past practice has indicated, I recommend that the board schedule an all boards meeting to receive updates from the various supporting boards of the select board and other commissions and trustees in town. I propose August 12th.
We currently have a meeting scheduled for that.
There's currently a select board meeting scheduled for August 12th. The agenda item for this meeting would be the all boards meeting.
Very
George?
much.
Mr. Chairman, would you consider a limited agenda on that day?
I would absolutely consider a
Thank you.
limited agenda.
Limited agenda.
So, is there consensus from the board for an all boards meeting on the 12th?
okay.
Make that motion, if you need a motion.
So I will make-
Seconded.
Yep, say I'll make a motion then for an all boards meeting on August 12th.
Same time, 6:30?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'll schedule it and report back to the board. Thank you.
Hold on, do we have to vote?
Here, aye.
Bailey, aye.
That's right.
Hardikoff, aye.
Nap aye. All right, thank you. Adding new revolving fund program coordinator position to the compensation study.
So the compensation study task force was tasked with preparing the RFP and determining the scope of the compensation study in town. A decision of that group was to only include positions funded out of the operating budget, with a request to the various other positions that if they wanted to fund their portion of the compensation study for positions included, they could. There was a request, so that offer was made. There was a request made of the select board. The recreation department has one full-time position that's funded, a new position which is funded from the revolving fund. And they would have made the request of the select board to waive to cover the cost of adding that one position. Again, the compensation studies position is task force position has previously been only positions funded out of the operating budget.
Do you have a cost for that?
So
Estimate.
I would trust Select Person Hardikoff to make a proper estimate. There are 37 other positions considered, so it would be 1/38 of the total cost.
So it would likely run between $400 and $500 for the evaluation of that new position. I have an opinion about that, and my opinion about that personally is, as much as I support the recognition, and I certainly do, certainly as their ex officio member that sits with meetings, I feel like if you do this with one position, then you need to do it with all, and because we're working very hard on our consistency, I feel that it should be included in the study so it's accurate, but I do feel that it should be paid for by the recognition.
I would agree with that.
So that would be my motion.
Okay. I'll second that motion then. Nap aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
That's right.
Bailey, aye.
Here aye.
Thank you. So it's out of order in the agenda, but I'll just finish up with my report. There's only a couple of things I wanted to mention. So the striping contract, so a previous decision by the select board was to award the contract to the next lowest bidder should the original bidder awarded the contract not honor the original contract price for striping in Barrington for 2019. They were offered that option to honor their price, and they declined. So the town of Barrington today signed the contract with the next lowest bidder, and we're working on scheduling that work in the town of Barrington. So striping will be a little later than normal in town, but it is being scheduled, and the difference to the town is about $600 between the two bidders.
So I would ask that in future years, you make a note that this has occurred because a contract is a contract is a contract.
Absolutely.
And I believe that one of the conversations Connor and I had after that was making sure that in the bid specifically that we talk about it's stipulated that they will honor their
Yeah, I felt
contracted
very
price.
comfortable that the materials listed were priced accordingly and that there was to be no variation, so.
Great, that's all I had, thank you.
Select
You,
person.
clerk's report.
Oh, yes, sorry. Suzanne?
The only thing I have is one gravel tax warrant, abatement number 9, payroll manifest dated June 16th, and vendor manifest dated June 19th.
Thank you, Clerk McLean. Anything else that you have to add, Connor?
I will just recognize, if you don't mind, the chair of the Town Lands Committee arrived. The board had previously made a vote to award the contract to the recommended land improvement organization. And I didn't know if the chair wanted to give an opportunity to mention the process or just recognize him for the work that they did.
Yep. Brian, if you wouldn't mind coming on up, please.
So I was just saying that the board voted earlier to award the contract recommended by the Lands Committee, and they seemed appreciative of the process the Lands Committee went through and look forward to working with them. Didn't know if you want to speak to it.
Yeah, what we did was, we received, when we had the RFP, there were 8 outfits that responded to that, and we had a meeting and cut it down to 4 that we wanted to interview. And in 2 separate meetings, we interviewed the 4 that we thought were very proper candidates, and they all really impressed us with the presentations they gave us. And really, they didn't have presentations. We kind of outlined what would be a presentation with 10 questions on the thing, and judged them on the basis of that 10 question job we gave. They had roughly 45 minutes and all pretty well used it up, but it went very well. And if you look at the data that's on the way we graded it, it was amazing to me how we all thought the same way. We didn't have the same grades, but I mean, it looked like it was pretty straightforward when we got done that we had made a good selection, we thought, and we were impressed with the 4 people we did it.
Thank you. It looked like a very thorough process, and the
Thank you.
grading was nice.
And it was
to see.
Was it? Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for your hard work.
Select persons report, Mr. Ayer.
Let's give it to me.
All right.
And then the conservation, had a meeting this up, and there was basic review sites and stuff like that.
Mr. Bailey?
My meeting was canceled because they did not have enough participants. Just as a reminder, if anybody's interested in working with the library commissioners, please come forward and fill out the application. They can use the alternates. Thank you.
Satch?
No zoning meeting yet.
Sorry.
And as
Oh,
far
sorry.
as the school, I've got to check and see what's going on there. But other than that, that's it. And their meeting was scheduled for which Tracy and I couldn't stand meet.
Oh, it was a retreat.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if the next one is, Dawn, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
I attended the rec commission. The rec commission is currently in need of up to 2 alternates on their board. So should we have people in town that are interested in contributing in that volunteer capacity, it is always needed. Currently, right now, the summer camps, soccer camp, and teen camps were all starting today. They did up to 4 weeks of training with the staff that were coming on board this year to work in those camps. Zumba will resume soon. They're working on getting that scheduled. And the online web portal was down for a period of time, which makes it really difficult for people to make their payments and schedule their time in their classes. The rec director certainly apologized. It was completely out of her hands and due to some type of facilities upgrade or change that took place. And they've now rebuilt what they needed to in their portal. And part of their hiring process for the program director will be someone who has some type of experience with, I have to find the exact discussion we had, but basically able to manage an online web portal that is at least like Vermont systems that they have. I think that was about it for the report out on that. We made changes to physical demands a few months back and used keyboarding as a term, and I just wanted to be sure that with each of the rec departments' job descriptions, they're given that additional physical demand language as they're updating their positions. Other than that, that was the meeting. It was really productive.
Planning board had a very good meeting on Meeting House Road, and the west side of the road where the condos we're looking at has been pulled off the table, and everything is proceeding forward with the road development and the house lots that will be on the east side of the road. And that was pretty much the planning board meeting. I will say it's nice to see a full board and everybody actively participating and having very good discussion and wide variety of discussion around the items that we're talking about. You have people who are very detailed into the regulation side of it and asking very good questions about that, and then you have the folks who are thinking more of the big picture of what is the environmental impact, how are they handling that aspect of it, and what that all looks like. So, good discussion.
Question, Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Did the planning board take into consideration any part of the timber tax from that first one? The first project that they pulled and they started the second one? So is there a timber tax we're going to collect in the middle of that? I have to say, I'm not trying to trick you in a question. I don't have an answer to that, that's what I'm saying.
I don't believe we've had any discussion on that.
So that's, timber tax has nothing to do with the planning board.
Yeah.
So, just, I guess
So
Connor.
timber tax has something to do with the planning.
So Connor can look at it, yeah.
The town pursues any need to collect timber tax, absolutely.
So down here, right?
Alrighty. Public comment.
And go
3 minutes.
3 minutes to each half, or? No, real briefly, if I may, I want to give you a quick update on where the highway projects are. The road paving is completed except for Lock Hill Lane. They were going to contact Aaron this week to determine a schedule to get in there and get that finished. Dana's been diligently getting the edging out on the last couple of roads we've done. The rest of the crews are, as I say, doing ditching, and we'll move forward getting the other stuff. So we'll keep you apprised. Malago Road closed this morning a little after 7. I was over there at 4:30 this afternoon putting more signs up because the 4 signs that were already there saying road closed, we're still having people turn around in the guy's driveway. So I went and got another road closed sign and moved the barricades a little closer to Stone Farm, hoping that people would at least turn around in the Stone Farm and go. So I expect within a couple of days people will figure out that the road really is closed and they'll do what they gotta do, but I think they're just still trying to sneak through thinking that we've had the signs up for a couple of weeks. But Pavement is about half gone over there. I expect they'll rip up the rest of the pavement tomorrow. Guardrails are gone. Any questions on the highway department?
Dan?
I clarified some of the list.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into it.
Yeah, no, that's fine, just stop and see when we can talk about it.
Tracy?
So I would just ask, so I happen to live on Stone Farm and we're a U-shaped development, and it would be perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned as a resident, instead of people turning around in the driveways. If you wanted to put a detour sign, they can just make a U. And we did have increased traffic through the neighborhood all day, so I assume people use that methodology. but-
Yeah, and I would expect that the people that use that road as a cross through, for the most part, getting through today will have figured that out. And I would hope the traffic will slow down on that road. You may get somebody like me that forgets it and drives it and then goes, oh yeah, but.
We're creatures of habit.
Yeah, I think it will, we posted the end of Pasture Hill Road. Pasture Hill Road's a Class 6 town unmaintained road, but I did have the gang put a sign up there saying that it's a dead-end road and there's no public turnaround up in there, because I really don't want people to drive up in there, go, okay, this road doesn't get me around this, now I can turn on somebody's driving and come back out. Then people do a nice job taking care of the road, and I would really hate to see a bunch of people driving up and down through this.
The one other thing is I did get my very first phone call ever as a select person about Malago, and that was a request that some of the sand and some of the pits be addressed for motorcycles.
What's that have to do with rink?
It's a road.
Oh, you're talking about on the road.
Yeah. There's a variety of sand that's making it slippery for motorcycles apparently.
Okay, all right.
What did I say?
Wait,
Did
I
I
thought you
say
were talking about
anything?
the sand.
Oh, sand pits, no,
There's a
and then
sand
there's
pit.
pitting in the road. Okay, two different things. So there's sand on the road, and there's a bunch of pitting in the road, and it's making it difficult for motorcycles to travel over the road.
I got
Does that
this.
make more sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
The sand, no.
we've been having issues with the broom this year. They've got it back up and running, and we'll get out and clean some of the roads up, but that will probably be a conversation that the next Public Works Director will be having with you folks on brooms and the different regulations attached to that. So certainly it won't be me, but you can look forward to having that type of conversation sooner rather than later.
Okay,
Thank you, Rick.
thank you.
All right. Any other public comments?
The only thing, and this is from a private business, but I think that, or at least I'm impressed with what Landry's done to clean up that lot of his. And that, yeah, Landry's junkyard, well, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Salvage yard. He's done a good job, because what's underneath, who knows? It does look a lot.
I would be surprised if it was much, because
Oh, I would agree with you. Yeah,
They're doing it to keep neighbors happy.
I agree with you.
having spent better than 20 plus years of my life working there, a job I really enjoyed, he was always at the forefront of being green and trying to be environmentally friendly because he lived on the property. So he was a little bit ahead of the curve. I absolutely won't stand here and say there was never an issue, but I'd be surprised. They've done a good job over there.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, we have a motion to go into non-public.
Motion to go into non-public for purpose of personnel, reputation, and what's the third
Legal.
one? Legal, thank you.
And I second.
Dan?
Here, I.
Haley, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Nat, aye. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I have a number.
Oh, no, we,